Hello, everybody, and welcome to another multidimensional soul. My name's Gary from Alternative Interactions, and you are?
Robert Lomax, hello.
Hello, Robert. Lovely for you to join us again. Now, we did a recent one where we were looking at the updates and the energies of July, and this is kind of a follow on. It's almost a part two, but it's not quite. I have another question that, although it follows on, there was so much information in the first one, we felt it needed to be stopped and allow people to absorb the frequencies and the energies and the information from that. In this show, I've got a question along the same lines but different. I'm interested in looking at the long-term changes via the recent planetary alignments and those that are coming. Because we certainly, we're in July. This may come out in August, beginning of August. I'm not sure when, but August is going to be a big month regardless. So we have this July August period that we're kind of talking about, but it carries on. So my question would be, what does this mean for the planet or the realm and the people, as well as how does it affect the regressives in this reality since we've had these planetary alignments and these planetary energies come in that are clearly changing and affecting us?
I've got antimaty at the moment. Let's just talk about where we came from. We mentioned, or Alka mentioned, the bodily upgrades, changing in your emotions, allowing different awarenesses, the dropping of some duality, the changing of your human drivers so that the program that you were involved in, you became detached from more and more from that manipulated program. And that your thought processing and therefore your ideas about yourself have begun to change so that you see yourself in a different way and you see the world in a different way. You see it as this programmed hologram. Therefore, you will see more of it being a manipulated program. In which case, the manipulation will be seen more and more. The darker elements within the program will be seen more and more. Some people will be exceptionally frightened by it. Others, with their new awareness, won't be frightened by it in the same way because fear is being removed from the psyche in the same way because fear is part of that program. So as the program changes, removing the fear, because you're moving out of the program of fear, you're seeing the hologram for what it is. So you're able to see the manipulation, but not see it and judge it through fear as to what it will have an effect on you as a self or as a soul. People will begin to see it as, I'm glad I've seen this. This is reality. And I've felt that there's been something wrong. Now I feel okay because I see the real manipulation and the real reality. Others will still be in part locked into the fear, or they won't see it in quite that way. So there will be a phase of more people exiting the world. Now, this doesn't mean they're going to exit. Some will die, and there will or may appear to be more deaths. Some of these may entwine with COVID related diseases where the bodies have been dysfunctionalized, but you do not have to worry about those body dysfunctions that have been injected into you, because there are energies at play that are working to vibrate at a different level. So the way in which they affect you doesn't have to be harmful. But it will happen in the case of some. It's just their choice at a higher level of how they exit. There will be, and of course, that will add to the fuel of seeing the manipulation, of seeing what it does, and really seeing what these augmented changes to the human body. That's what they were designed to be, augmented changes. But let's not get angry about that. Others will exit in other ways, but the way in which the remaining population sees them will be different. The timelines can change as if they weren't here, that they will exit to higher realms, they will reawaken in another place with a memory of a past life. And all will be well because they will be released from these human drivers and constructs, and they will be in that natural state of soul. So they won't miss it. They won't miss family in quite the same way. They will see it as a question of choices, all beings making choices. So some of the timelines are going to change. Things, the exits will be as if they weren't part of this world. That sounds quite fantastic, doesn't it? Fantastical. But the nature of the universe is this way. If you change the information, the energy reflects to the changed information. If the timeline changes, then that moment changes. We talked of it before about previous civilizations and the memory of those civilizations. That memory timelines would change to suit the situation. So, yeah, there are going to be some big changes, and also big changes for the regressives as well.
Really interesting. You brought up three very, very, very important points that I want to go back onto and put, the program of expansion or the change of the program allowing us to expand, which is what we're going through now. July, feeling all that energy through my own body one night, almost having the dark night of the soul. It wasn't actually a dark night of the soul, it was an energy coming into my body, stopping me sleeping, stopping me. And were there any conscious thoughts about this? None whatsoever. But I knew I was going through a process. And I know that whatever given time, even though time isn't relative in this respect, but whatever period when it's most beneficial for this information, this knowings to come back in and expand my mind, this is what will happen. But the expansion, I see it as the fall of the regressive's control mechanism. So at the moment, we're inside a black cube of control on our mind. We can only go to the edge of this black cube. are we starting to expand to the point where we are really putting serious pressure on this black cube, where we will go beyond the black cube and start to expand, as in like losing fear and fear not being the construct that it once was? Is this what you're kind of saying on this particular point, please?
Yes, in some ways, and in many ways. I suppose the black box that you talk about really relates to the Fibonacci code and to the way in which the energy moves within that particular construct. We spoke the last time about universal energies and the mechanics of the universal energies as a big mechanism, that it was a good way to perhaps perceive the planets moving around this large mechanism, the cogs and the wheels, the intricate tiny things moving within or slipping up and down the big arms as they moved, so that as an arm moves, the gravity takes the other wheels around it in a different way. So seeing this enormous mechanism, not just like a watch, but like a sphere. Can you imagine the complexity of that? So, in terms of what the regressives do to us, or what we see, or what you can see, is you won't even conceive of the black box, you won't even conceive of a containment. Containment won't even be part of your mental construct because you're breaking free from that construct of containment. Now, one of the fears that was placed within that control mechanism is to be afraid of not being in the control mechanism, that it's safer to be in the control mechanism, safer to give away your control over somebody else. Somebody else knows better. We will make it better for you. The state will pay your wages. The state will do this for you. It's safer to allow other people to run your lives for you and to tell you what to do. Chicken farm, of course. So the awareness does change. The way in which the regressives have used this system to generate energy for itself, to use those experience of that 3D system and to manipulate it in their own ways. It's a system. And when you perceive it as something hugely mechanical and vast, as we said before, you can see that wherever they stick a matchstick in, or wherever they stick a pole in, or a girder, the girder will just be mashed up as if it doesn't exist, because the vibrational energy that exists within that whole system now is completely different. So it's inevitable. And as they try to manipulate more, it's like this is the way of working. This is the way that system works. There's no other system. They can only do work within that system. And as the system fails to work for them, it doesn't matter what they throw at it. The system will just collapse. And that's what's going to happen. That 3D control system is collapsing, and they are collapsing with it.
Yes. Yeah, they are. They are. Thank you for that answer. It made a lot of sense. Again, something that I know the audience are going to be very keen to understand is the weapon that was injected into people, the issue that we had during 2020, and I call it the 12 dart finish. This 12 dart finish is a technology of the 3D mechanism of the cube. As once we start to expand from that and break free, as you've just so brilliantly expressed, that technology no longer is able to work, is my understanding. And so that technology is then flushed from the light body as the light intensifies. This frequency that has been placed upon these people is literally excreted out of the body to cause no harm. Would that be a good way to describe it?
Yes, it is a good way to describe it because it makes it tangible. Another way to perceive it is in terms of energy and program. And as the program changes, as we are changing the program, the way in which source energy acts, if the program changes, then it cannot exist because its program is being deleted. Already within your world, there are a different set of programs. There are organisms, if we call them that, bacteria, programs, we could use that because you're a program, I'm a program, that exist in such a way that they change the microplastics within the seas. So already there is help with programming of your environment so that your environment can begin to heal itself. This is not to say that you have no responsibility still, but that some people might say technology is there. Technology and chemistry and organisms are all entwined. And whether it's a mechanical technology or an organic technology, wherein lies the difference? Because you are an organic technology using mechanical and engineered technologies. You have chemicals in you. Some of your engineering has chemicals in it. It's minerals within it. So do you. So these are multifaceted, the way in which they uh, entwine. But yes, Gary, you're correct.
Yeah. And that also links into what you were talking about, the human drivers going, because as once those programs stop, that you've just so nicely put, the driver that creates the situation is no longer there. And so that then becomes null and void, and it's an ending to itself, isn't it?
Yeah, the programs becoming unraveled and no longer vibrating at that level because they are of a different vibrational level. So as the vibrations change, those programs don't fit in with the new mechanism that's coming. So I suppose in some ways a good way to visualize that would be to visualize that as a light mechanism, maybe with cogs and wheels, but you can see them in a different way that the cogs and wheels will be more fluid. So your whole mechanism is much more fluid and it's a different light and crystalline based um, dimension.
Beautifully put. I do want to go on to the cogs of the mechanism, but before we do, and while we're kind of talking about the dropping of the program, the drivers, and the technology that was injected into people, that will fail to be a problem for many or not, depending on choice. I'm aware that we have a feedback energy. We have a loop of energy. And the loop of energy that I'm thinking about is the regressives feedback energy. I have noticed very much that, I mean, I'm not on a lot of social media because I was removed years ago. But when I was on social media, if I put a post out that I see similar posts placed today, I would have got slanted and had a lot of aggravation from it, and maybe one or two good comments. The majority, 90%, would have been against me. I've noticed via being shown on other people's media that nowadays the same exact post gets around 90% support. This is an energy feedback that has changed from 2021, 2022 to 2026. And there seems to be a loop that's changed. There's a frequency change. Regarding the regressives, can you express and explain how this is going to increase and how potentially they're going to become under more and more scrutiny, and the fact that their deceptions will be seen and exposed, please?
Yes, this is a multifaceted situation, much like the mechanism that we talked about. There was a symbiotic relationship in order to create the loosh. Humanity agreed to have that experience at a particular level. It became trapped in those thoughts, within those hamster wheel experiences. The way in which the regressives utilized the system, the creation, is that whilst getting others to create negative energy, they could superimpose upon the consciousness of that program, might call it karma, might call it energy return, that energy was created by those humans, and therefore those humans had to deal with the resultant of that energy that they had created. So the regressives were obviating themselves the return energy in what they had created in the program, by saying within the program, and you within that program, accepting that you were responsible for the energy created, even though you have a manipulated program. Of course, that's how cause and effect works. And that is creation. And as we say, at some level, there is an awareness of what was created. But of course, as it got out of control, and I will say that it got out of control, as the manipulation took over, it was very difficult to have an effect on that program from the outside. So it was contained over millennium, and the Earth was contained so that it didn't affect the rest of the solar system and the universe. But following on from that, we've now got a situation where the energy return is now returning to the regressives. So it's happening faster and faster, to the point that one of the ways that they existed is they existed in a time loop. So that as well as pushing off responsibility for the energy return was also part of a timeline that they created as a spiral. So much like a spring, a coiled spring on a bed, so that the energy return would go round and not actually return to the origin. So this is another construct that they've used.
Sorry, can I just interrupt? So what we're kind of talking about is a toroidal field of energy that loops, and they've cut the toroidal field in half. So the toroidal field does not loop back to the origin as such and can be intercepted. Is this what you're saying?
That's another good explanation of it, the coiled spring. Yes, a shortened definition of a toroidal field or the inside of a toroidal field. So the what they are doing in the program, we described it as this mechanism. They have no other way of working. It is the working of that mechanism. The mechanism is not working. The mechanism is failing. So therefore, the energy, whatever they do, is returning to themselves. It's becoming for them a chaotic thing. Trying to pull the same levers, pull on the same ropes when they have no effect. There is no other system. Therefore, it will fail because there is no other system. The system is changing. The system is inevitably changing, and it's going to fail. It's inevitable because that's the system.
So those that have been observing this kind of thing for some time, we call it the playbook. And if you start to look through history and certain events through our history, the historical event happens in a very similar way, but with subtle differences, but always the same kind of way. That's their playbook. They lack imagination and they lack the ability to create because they are not creators, they are only feeders. They are parasites. A parasite cannot create anything, it can only feed off that has already been created. And so, what you're saying is that this playbook has now become so old that the playbook no longer functions in the way that they need it to because we have outgrown and we are about to outgrow the playbook, and the population, the general population, is going to see this playbook for exactly what it is, and there's no hiding anymore.
Yes. Understanding and perceiving even the months ahead or the years ahead, you are still perceiving through your existing slightly altered filters, slightly improved. So fear is still a little part of the system. So as you look ahead, you could superimpose fear, superimpose these ideas of safety and control, or safe in somebody else's control, or this is going to be, that's another one, isn't it? This is not being controlled. Therefore, you are not in control because you don't need to be in control. The thought comes in that you are out of control. That is a manipulation of control. See, that is a thought process. I don't want to be out of control because it's a fearful thing to be. I want to be in control, maybe, but that is the sense of control. Controlling yourself. How can you control love? You can only love through love. And if you try and control or manipulate love or control what love comes to you, You've created duality situations. That's not, that's the human expression of love. That's not our understanding of just is and our connection to things. So yes, it's coming undone, and I think
which
it's part
is
of that.
yeah, no, but that then links back to the human drivers going and our perception of, and the fact that we will perceive in a completely different way, and the reality will be changing. And what happened in the past, those timelines will no longer exist. And if those timelines no longer exist in the past, they can no longer affect the future via the return of energy from them via our ability to change the program and the expansion of us that then leaves that behind.
That is also part of the system. Time is part of that system, and time will not exist in the same way for you. There will still be the experiences of light movement and darkness, but the moment of now contains the past and the future. It's just your position of perspective. And if you remove a particular thing, you remove its involvement in the past and in the future. You might say there will be memories, but as we have tried to explain before, there are different types of energetic memories. There are memories attached to energies. Of course, when you change the energy, you change the memory. So it's a bit like, as an experience, it's a bit like thinking back to a past life or thinking back to childhood. The things that you can remember are not the same as what you remember from remembering this day. They are emotional based, they are energetic based, so that the emotions may be positive as well as negative. So those are the main which ones that you're attaching to. You're attaching to the energy of the emotion in those. So what are they memories of? The actual events or the way in which you perceived them? Because of course other people perceive them in a slightly different way. So what was that true event? It really doesn't matter. It's what it means for you and what it does for your energy. But yes, these regressives, the way in which they are involved in time will cease, because I've tried to, as I said before, with that coiled spring element, the way in which they manipulate and use time to delay the return energy and to manipulate energies will fail also, because time is changing as well. So the system is changing.
Yeah. I was just kind of showing an image of the two pyramids. You know, you've got a pyramid here, and upside down, you've got a pyramid. And you could see that as two coiled springs, that the pyramids are separate because the regressives have separated that. But those pyramids are now joining together, which means that energy flow is going back to them, and there's nothing they can do to stop that.
Got
Now,
to have cause and effect,
cause
and
and
you
effect.
cannot delay it anymore because of those Fibonacci codes. That it was a set period. The machine was set in that way. The machine was created, and I call it a machine, universal cosmic creation.
And if we look at the top corner, everybody, you can see cogs and machinery that's outside of our current perception of the reality. I would suggest, if you want to look at it in that respect. Now, this takes us to the cogs of the mechanism. Now, you said to me, and we were talking about planetary alignments. This is off camera, everybody. And I said that it appears to me that from my work that I've just been doing with the pendulum and my understandings and what I'm learning, is that CERN or devices like CERN, they were trying to use these in a way to stop the cogs of the mechanism of the planetary movement that would create certain karmic energy back feed to them that they couldn't stop. And this, for me, is part of the reason why CERN was invented or used by them. And in the previous program, you actually said something. I tried not to laugh, but you said it's like putting matchsticks into the mechanism trying to stop it. And CERN was just a matchstick going in. Can you explain about the true power of the cogs of the mechanism and in the way that they work and how that they cannot be stopped by the regressives, please?
CERN was had different functions. One of the base functions was to stop our your we are involved as souls within planetary experience evolution, because as you can imagine, going to a higher vibration is one of the ways to stop it would be to create a much lower vibration to destabilize your existing reality. So that was one of the ideas behind it. One of the ideas was using it as a last resort to destabilize your third density vibration in order that it couldn't make that change because the influence of even more regressive energy would stop that. Over a period of time, energies have been changing. People have been working with energies. If you think back to magic, spells, witches, white witches, I'm talking of, moving negative entities back to the realms where they came from. And even the church has been involved in such things. So there's a bit of irony there, even though they're part of the mechanism. So that was one of the functions of CERN. It would have affected people's emotions, people's psyches. So it was a kind of a multi-various way of changing not only the system, but the people within the system, and people being a reflection of that system, so that the people would change the system by their thoughts being, again, further manipulated. So in terms of putting matchsticks in the cogs, in terms of changing things, this system was of a finite, I would say, period, but you would see that in terms of time. But it had finite possibilities. And as Gary said, some of these were the play programs that, there were resets and the same play happened. The same use of energies and return energies, the same feeding pattern. could only exist for so long because that was an inherent part of the creation. So when we talk about it being an inherent part of the creation, you can then see it as a fail-safe. You can then see it as an escape button, that it had a finite period, despite what was being done to manipulate it. And it did. But that is at a cosmic level, that is at a universal soul, at a universal cosmic consciousness level. And when we start talking about the complexities of that and all possibility and how that works in such a wonderful way, the way the universe is, imagine it in all its dimensions, its diversities. And yet the play systems have worked themselves out in such a way that the system has even created a failsafe for the system, which gives you an insight into the way in which the complexity of the universe and universal soul exists. Of course, this plays out in other ways with benevolence who are involved in helping out. So we can't just say it's the default system. It's the way in which the default system or the finite system that was created works in conjunction with the multidimensional soul as well. So that other benevolence being here, like I am here now talking to you. What a system. And when you look at it in that way, we're left in awe. Even I'm left in awe. And we talk of that just is, and we can now feel that feeling. And talks of regressives, just let that fade. I know these things are going to come to pass, and they will. But for the moment, just feel, feel the enormity of who we are. It's magnificent.
Truly, we are. And I think on that note, we should leave it there because I don't think we can follow that one. Thank you very much for watching, everybody. Please like, share, and subscribe to Robert Lomax. He has a website and he's on Facebook. We really appreciate all your comments, likes, and shares, both of us, and it really does draw us forward. We still have some more Q&As to go through in future shows. We haven't forgotten about that, and they will be coming up in the very near future. So with that, everybody, it's goodbye from me.
Can I just interject before
Yes,
I say goodbye? I think we need to acknowledge Gary's part in this and the way in which his questions enable us to interface in such a way. So when we talked of the magnificence of programs and the magnificence of souls, we should see this as a complex meeting of energies and souls as we speak here and now, and that we are each reliant upon, we are each part of that process. So we would wish to acknowledge Gary's part in this as well. Thank you.
thank you very much. I appreciate that. Do. And I really do appreciate the opportunity that I've been given to ask such complex questions that make sense to me, that we're able to express to this audience who are enlightened beings themselves, so that we can really start to shine a light on all of this as we move forward with no fear. So thank you very much.
Goodbye.
Bye bye, everyone.